today on Locked On Rockies, episode that's kind of become an off-season tradition around here. Didn't think I'd be able to get away with it 3 seasons in a row, but I think we can have an interesting conversation. Which team are you more confident in the direction of? The Colorado Rockies or the Denver Broncos?
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans, welcome into the Locked On Rockies podcast for today, the 17th day of October in the year 2024. I'm your host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, Paul Holden, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You're in the right spot, because that's what we do around here each and every day, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. That's right, your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, you found us. You're in the right spot. Find us on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel as well. Be part of the show. Fire off your Rockies hot takes. And actually, in the spirit of that, let's read a comment from Jack here. The worst thing is you look at other Colorado front offices. This is in response to our episode earlier that was titled, Will the Colorado Rockies Answer These Offseason Questions, relating to Thomas Harding's 5 questions for the Rockies to answer in the offseason. I know that's not the title specifically, but Thomas Harding wrote about that, and you can go check that out. Anyway, back to Jack's comment, especially the Avalanche, and you see the commitment and honestly with the fans. When they were bad, they made the adjustments and changes to get back into it. For the Rockies, it's telling the fans, we'll be fine, while not changing anything at all. There should be more accountability, but who am I kidding? I don't think the front office knows how to look into a mirror and face the facts. Fortunately, the Avs off to a tough start, but that comment kind of sets the tone, sets the stage for where we're at right now. And we'll kind of talk about other teams too in the Colorado market as, again, I really, 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 really think it's important for us not to ignore the relevance of the Colorado Rockies and what that means for this team. This team not being popular, this team declining in attendance, this team without a local TV deal anymore. This stuff matters. These conversations, it all can tie together to, why aren't the Rockies doing these moves? Why don't they feel like they can do this? Why aren't they, spending money this way? It's all kind of related, and so we'll talk about that and more here. Before we dive into all the fun today, got to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to win $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Okay, so let's just start this off with, obviously, this could be apples to oranges. The comparison isn't totally fair, but I've done this episode before in the offseason, and we've talked, obviously, since I've been doing the show, it's been through the Russell Wilson experience with the Broncos. I think it was both the Russ years and the year before, I think I was doing the show. And you can kind of look at and point these two things together and these kind of storylines, and you can kind of look at and you see similarities. Instead of, no change in ownership, but both the Rockies and Broncos go in on a huge contract of a big name, and it flounders. Obviously, the Broncos not so much, but here's the big key difference here. And the decision that the Broncos made that the Rockies didn't. And you're probably like, why are we randomly talking about the Broncos? Well, it's Thursday Night Football tonight, so I figured, why not? Let's have some fun. Let's, bring in a little stuff. We're obviously getting ready for the Donkeys tonight, taking on the Saints. But the Broncos ownership took the Russ deal on the chin and eventually got to a point and said, we just have to bite the bullet. We just have to move on. We just have to eat this money. We just have to deal with this. Because if we continue to commit to this, if we continue to commit to this process, this guide, this philosophy, it ain't going to work with our coach. It ain't going to work on the field. We got to do something different, and we're going to go draft a young guy. And the Broncos are doing the rookie quarterback thing, which they don't do a ton of. The Rockies, I don't think, will embrace that same type of mentality. I think the loyalty of the Rockies mixed with how big of a deal it is to the Rockies to have a name, a flashy name. That's going to haunt them. I think it's also a different thing because, too, Dick Monfort, as wealthy as he may be, is not the Waltons. It is not Walmart. So that's a different that adds a layer there too. The Broncos can eat, more easily eat that money because they're bankrolled by some of the wealthiest people in the world. And I understand salary cap and all that stuff. I'm talking about the ability to just eat that money. I think while there's an argument about the Kris Bryant situation, I think when you're sitting here and you're the Colorado Rockies, you're sitting there and saying, you're like, I don't necessarily think we can just eat that money. Attendance down, no TV deal, haven't been in the playoffs, yada, 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 yada. Not like they're spending a bunch of money on other players either. It's not like, I don't think the Rockies payroll is all that crazy. But when you think about how the Rockies stack up in terms of salary wise here, Kris Bryant is the highest paid Rocky by a mile. And Kris Bryant owed at least $27 million or $28 million this year, and now $27 million for the next 4 seasons. That's $11 million than Ryan McMahon. That's $11 more million than Kyle Freeland. That is more. That's all Ezekiel Tovar, who they signed to. That's more than him. I mean, you can start adding people together and saying, this is it. Rocky's still the numbers coming off the books don't necessarily clear you up a big deal. $9.5 million coming off the books for Daniel Bard and $13 million for Charlie Blackmon. That's going to be coming off the board as well. But I don't necessarily think you can sit here as the Rockies and be fully confident that you can just move on from that contract in terms of like cutting him and just eating the money. But the Broncos looked at the tough situation they were in. The Broncos looked at how bad things were going. The Broncos looked at how bad this stretch has been. Remember, the Broncos haven't been to the playoffs since the Super Bowl. And that's the ultimate thing that the Broncos will always have over the Rockies and all the other 3 major men's sports teams in Colorado will have over the Rockies. They have championships. 2 of them have recent championships. So I guess when I'm thinking about direction, when I'm thinking about the teams I'm more confident in, while I still have tremendous doubts about the Denver Broncos, like let me be abundantly clear. I still don't necessarily. I'm still not sold on Sean Payton. I know Bo Nix is showing flashes and stuff. I'm intrigued by the Broncos. But what's been fun about this season for the Broncos and even going through it with the expectations is they made the tough call to move on from the guy that wasn't working and the huge cost associated with that. They made a tough decision. I'm waiting for the Rockies to make a tough decision. I just feel like the decisions the Rockies make are the easy ones. And again, I feel like their decisions aren't necessarily always fully thought out. There were concerns about Kris Bryant heading into his free agency. And instead, the Rockies give him an 8-year deal that's worth a ton of money without proving anything. And that sounds very familiar to the Russell Wilson contract. And again, you can't, it's not one for one. Different sports, different ownerships, different rules, different teams, different makeups, all sorts of things. But I'm talking about looking at the direction of the franchise and saying, we're still continuing down the wrong path. We need to zag from this. And I don't think the Rockies will do that. It goes back to what our favorite quotes from Dick Monfort before the season last year about how they've got it all figured out and they know the answers. They know how to. No, you don't. And at least with this whole new Rockies or not Broncos ownership and all the new names and such that were coming in there, they did something differently. They pivoted. They swallowed the tough pill and moved on. We'll see if it's going to pan out. The Broncos are still a 500 team and still not all that, they're not setting the league on fire with Bo Nix or anything. But I ask you, haven't you been more interested in the Broncos this year instead of last year? The first year with Russ was different because it was the hype and everything, and we were kind of holding on hope. I thought Russell Wilson meant Broncos Super Bowl. I won't lie. But the Broncos saw the writing on the wall. The Broncos wanted something different. Looked to somewhere differently. Looked to a different option and made that call. Whereas the Rockies have had the same philosophy, the same approach, and bring everybody back. Remember, Nathaniel Hackett fired in the middle of the season. I don't even remember who the coach, and then Sean Payton last year had to go through and struggle with it. The Broncos have made more changes throughout this time of struggle than the Rockies have ever even considered. So I guess when I'm thinking about it, I think I'm more confident in the Denver Broncos. And this used to be different. This used to flip-flop for me. But I really think that with the comments that were made at the beginning of the season, with the comments that have been made at the end of the season, the Rockies are more committed to sticking with their old ways and sticking with what they know and sticking with what they've done and being okay with that versus making tough decisions and moving on. I don't think the Rockies have it in them to cut Chris Bryant. And again, this is business talk. We are talking business side. I understand how frustrating and tough it is for Chris Bryant. I relate to him, and this is the tough part of the business. But the Broncos made the decision to move on from Russ while eating that money so they can build for the future. Are we really fully 110% bought into the way the Rockies are trying to rebuild and build for the future? I'm not. Let's keep talking about this. And again, I think it's just it's an off-season conversation, but it's just the ability to make those tough calls. It's the ability to think critically and seek different perspective that I don't think the Rockies do really at the rate that any of the Colorado sports teams have done. Let's keep having the conversation here on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible. And that includes PrizePicks. PrizePicks is the best place to play daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions of dollars in awarded winnings, PrizePicks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. It's super simple. Say you're going into, let's see, what do we got? Nuggets coming up or Avalanche. Just pick your players that you think are going to have a big and guess what? It's not like other fantasy. It's not like someone's going to take the player off the waiver wire that you wanted, or they're going to get in the way of who you think's going to have a big game. No. You against the numbers. You pick the players, and you pick more or less on at least two players for a shot up to win up to 100 times your cash. More or less meaning more hits, more strikeouts, more home runs, or less stolen bases, less walks. There's a wide variety of stats that you can choose from a wide variety of sports, and PrizePicks has got you covered. It's the best place to get real money sports action. Join over 10 million users and sign up today. And PrizePicks puts its members first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. When your picks hit, you can get your money in as quick as 15 minutes. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup when you use the code LOCKEDONMLB on the PrizePicks app. PrizePicks, run your game. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where you can find your team every day. And if your team is the Colorado Rockies, guess what? You found us. You're in the right spot. That's what we do. We talk Rockies baseball, free and streaming. All right, so talking Rockies and Broncos, and let's talk a little bit about the Nuggets and Avalanche in this conversation as well. Before we do that, Hey, for your second listen of the day, go check out our pal Sully on Locked On MLB. He's got you covered all postseason long as we're getting even closer to the World Series. Breaking it all things baseball down there on Locked On MLB. Don't miss out. Sully is one of the best in the biz. So we've been talking about confidence in which team are you more confident in, Rockies or the Broncos? And it's a fun conversation just because it's not something you can go 1-for-1 for. But I just look at the Nuggets and I look at the Avalanche as well, and that goes back to Jack's comments. Two teams that realized that things weren't going well, and they had to go through a process too, right? They you draft Jokic. It's got to take time for him to develop into the player that he is. Don't necessarily know how many people thought he was going to be the player that he is today. Avalanche, same thing. They had those terrible seasons there while building up to get to this incredible team that they have and have had. I know Georgiev has been a rough start to the season for him there in the net. But I just look at the other three major men's teams in Colorado. And I see teams that have done things differently. I've seen teams that are better evaluators. I've seen teams with front offices that are able to do more, are able to analyze more. And I'm just curious if that's ever rubbed off onto the Rockies or ever made them think differently. I truly wonder what Dick Monfort's reputation is amongst the Colorado sports leadership, because I see other teams that change their philosophy to the draft. Again, drafting a big Serbian dude out of nowhere during a Taco Bell commercial. I mean, remember, that's how Nikola Jokic ended up on the Denver Broncos, or not the Denver Nuggets. So I'm more confident in the other team's abilities to get the job done because they've gotten the job done. And yes, the Nuggets and Avalanche are hitting are on the down right now, unfortunately, and need to adjust as their seasons are going to go on. But I'm more confident in those teams being able to turn it around. Even the Nuggets now. I mean, the Nuggets maybe a little bit might start getting a little murky there with how things have been going in the post championship seasons, but it's only been 2 seasons since that. I guess this is the start of the second season after the championship. So we got to give them time. But my point is, I think when we're talking about the confidence in the leadership, I don't think the Nuggets, the Avalanche, and the Broncos leadership would say the same stuff that Dick Monfort said before the season. I don't think that they would settle for the status quo after back-to-back historic loss seasons. Again, I don't think the Broncos would keep their coach if they were as bad. They didn't keep their coach when they were as bad as they were. They haven't kept their coach when they've been as bad as they've been in the post Super Bowl era. And that's a different type of story, obviously, and that has its own flaws, absolutely. But it's been an approach at least that says, this ain't working, we're making a move. Whereas, again, the Rockies are bringing the entire coaching staff back, minus an assistant bullpen coach, minus a bullpen coach and an assistant coach. I just don't think the Rockies view the process the same way. I don't think the Rockies have the same mindset as these other teams. And none of them are perfect. None of them have been absent from mistakes. But I'm more confident that these teams are going to get themselves back in a position to be successful than I am the Colorado Rockies. I don't think just running it back next year with the same type of stuff and with the things that we've been hearing from Bill Schmidt and kind of the murmurings of the offseason, I don't think just running it back with the Rockies is the right move. It doesn't build any confidence in me that this team is just running it back with the same people. And I just hope that I'm proven wrong, because the Rockies just continue to fall behind. They fall behind in baseball. They've fallen behind in Colorado. They've just continued to have what should be a team that can dominate a region during baseball season. I'm talking a geographical area of the Rockies are in a big old part of the country where they could be the baseball team. They could be the baseball team for that part of the country. Just like look at how big Broncos country is. And instead, it's just the commitment to the status quo for them. It's just throwing up your hands and saying, "Nah, that wouldn't work. We know it won't work. We got it all figured out." Whereas in the last decade, I believe, let me make sure here. Let's see. When was okay? So yeah, in the last decade, because Super Bowl 50 was 2016. In the last decade, the Nuggets, the Avalanche, and the Broncos have won championships. The Rockies have 2 back-to-back postseason appearances in that time, mixed in with last place in the division, bottom of baseball, worst statistical performances. So when I see the other 3 teams have success in the last decade, while the Rockies could have been on that same path, there is another universe in which in the last decade, all 4 of the major men's sports in Colorado have championships in the last decade. I truly believe that. I truly, truly believe that. Instead, they didn't build around Arenado. That relationship soured, traded him away for a trade that hasn't panned out. It's a team that has continued to give opportunity to after opportunity after opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to people in the front office and in the coaching staff and within the organization to prove themselves, to do something differently, to take steps forward. But no. In the last decade, while the other Colorado sports teams have won and have done winning and have been good teams, the Rockies have lost, and they have been the losers out of the main big 4 men's sports. So when I'm talking about confidence, Rockies or Broncos, I'm more confident in the Broncos. I'm more confident in the Avalanche. I'm more confident in the Nuggets. Why? Because they made the changes and did the things necessary to get to, not only get to, but win the championship. And the Broncos, obviously, that's running out of time. It's almost been a decade since they've been back in the playoffs. But that is almost the same conversation for the Colorado Rockies as well. Let me know what you think. Let me know who you're more confident in. Let me know what you think on this interesting topic as we get ready for segment number 3, where we're going to talk about the importance of depth on lineup or in the lineups, and we're seeing that here on display in the playoffs. We're coming up next here on today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Before we do that, got to tell you about the folks that help make this show possible, and that includes Hims. Be prepared for the spontaneous, intimate moments, and Hims is going to help you take care of your health to make sure that you can be ready to go when the time is right. Hims is changing men's healthcare by providing you with access to affordable sexual health treatments from the comfort of your couch. This process is 100% online, so there's no need for uncomfortable doctor's visits. Just answer a series of questions on their site, and a medical provider will determine the right treatment option. If prescribed, your medication ships directly to you in discreet packaging for free. No insurance is needed, and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/locked-on. That's HIMS.com/locked-on for your personalized treatment options. HIMS.com/locked-on. The products mentioned are chewable compound products, which are not approved by or verified for safety or effectiveness by the FDA. Prescriptions require an online consultation with the healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan. This is the Locked On Rockies podcast for free and streaming on your favorite streaming services, bringing you your daily Colorado Rockies talk right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. For your second listen of the day, go check out Locked On MLB. Sully's got you covered for all things postseason. And hey, I want to tell you, kind of this fits with our theme that we've been talking about, the focus on star power and that love of star power that the Rockies have or have always craved. Sometimes you need to build the depth around. You need to make sure that your team is able to handle the stretches where your best players aren't being the best versions of themselves. And look at the teams that are currently in leads when it comes to the championship series. Shohei obviously hit a towering monster home run yesterday, but he hasn't done much in the postseason. He hasn't. I mean, he's had a couple of big moments. He hasn't done a lot in this series specifically. And on the flip side, Aaron Judge is in the same type of situation. Finally hits a home run as well. And obviously they bring a threat every time. But this is important. This goes back to our conversation when we talked about when you're looking at the WAR rankings of Rockies and how they compare to the rest of these other teams. The depth matters. You need to have a 1 through 9 that can contribute all along the way to pick up for these players that are struggling in these key moments. The Yankees and the Dodgers, you'd think if Shohei and Aaron Judge aren't performing, that they're going to be in bigger trouble, that they're going to be in situations where they're going to be trailing. No. Obviously, they've been huge, blowouts either way, basically in the National League Championship Series. But the Dodgers haven't needed Shohei to be Shohei to get to where they need to go. They have enough depth in the lineup to make sure that they have a Kike Hernandez who's able to do damage. I know Teoscar hasn't done much, but he's either striking out or walking, putting runners on. And look what happened when Shohei finally comes up with runners in scoring position yesterday. He hits a ball almost to the moon. Aaron Judge, a prime example, someone who's had historic October struggles, someone who's completely under the microscope this postseason, still struggling, but yet his team is able to back him up and is able to convert when the Guardians have made mistakes. They've done enough. I don't think the Yankees have played nearly as well as the Dodgers have in the championship series. But my point is, it can't just be a guy, and it can't just be two guys. You need to have a 1 through 9 that can contribute. You need to have people that can back up a pitcher in a close situation. You need to have a lineup that is going to pose a threat every single time someone steps up into the box. And I want you to take the Yankees, and yes, I actually want you to do this. I do not care about the payrolls. I do not care about the situations. Look at the lineups of the teams in the championship series. Put the Guardians in there. Let's go Guardians. You want to go smaller biz? You want to go smaller money? Let's go Guardians. And let's see here. Let me do a quick little Guardians payroll. So I'm curious about this here. All right. The highest paid player on the Cleveland Guardians is Jose Ramirez, and he's making $17 million this year. Comparable, let's see. Ryan McMahon is making more money than is making $1 million less. That's actually starting in 2026. So Ryan McMahon's only at $12 million right now. So Jose Ramirez is being paid $5 million more than Ryan McMahon right now. There's not a single other person on the Guardians roster that is making more than $6.5 million. The Rockies have 1, 2, 3, 4. The Rockies have 4 guys, 5 counting Chris Bryant, I believe. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. 5 guys in 2025 are making over $10 million. I don't want to hear about the money. That's evaluation. So compare the lineups, compare the roster, compare the depth. And if Cleveland was just playing better baseball, they'd be in a different situation too. because the Yankees haven't played well enough for them to be up the way that they have. So it's really just circles back to and kind of enhances that conversation when you're talking about depth and where the Rockies WAR, how they finished by WAR actually stacks up to the rest of these lineups. And it shows you how far behind the Rockies are when it comes to key contributors throughout the lineup. All right, folks, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Rockies. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel, where you can be part of the show. Fire off the Rockies hot takes. Let me know what's on your mind when it comes to Rockies and Broncos and the other teams as well. And we'll be keeping things Rockies all offseason long. So every time you like the videos, every time you subscribe, every time you leave a 5-star review, you're really helping the show grow. So, folks, until next time. Oh, before we do that, go check out all these other pods. We're just talking to all the other Colorado sports teams. Why not go listen to them and hear from the hosts on the Locked On Podcast Network about the Broncos, Avalanche, Nuggets, and we didn't even talk about the Buffs. So go check that out for your second listen of the day as well. And until next time, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Rockies podcast.